happy to be back with you again this week with a new topic. And this one is going to challenge you. Today, we are talking about radical responsibility. And I have to admit, this has been a challenge for me. This is something that I continue to live into, but it has absolutely transformed my life. And that's why I'm so excited about talking about it today. Kim, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thank you, everyone, for tuning back in live with us. We are talking about radical responsibility today as we are on this brand new platform and working out all the little glitches that we always experience. But we are here. Radical responsibility. I have to tell you, many, many years ago, well, I shouldn't say that many years ago, but I would never have understood what that meant, radical responsibility. I wasn't in that place in my life to understand. I think that comes with a lot with this self-improvement world that we are all in. But what we're going to be talking about today will potentially get you stirring in your seat. You might get a little unhappy with some of the things that we say, but remember, the whole purpose of Raw and Unscripted is for us, also for you, to help us improve our lives on some level, improve our relationships, improve the way we are addressing something that's going on in our life. And also to be real about this, because we understand that we all have different experiences. We don't all have the same tools per se to help us through different difficult seasons. And so we encourage you to be open-minded and to see if we can soften our guard a little bit and be open. Because I don't know about you, Kellyanne, but I know that when I began this journey, we often feel like, well, you don't know what I've gone through, and you don't know that, well, I'm not the same as you, or you must be so lucky to have, such a great support system, whatever. But the point is, and that's the whole point of radical responsibility, which I'll now address and open up, is it's about taking ownership of your life. It's about recognizing that you are an active member in your life. And there's actually two sides to this. I look at it from the angle of, yes, you are responsible. You're responsible for how you respond to life, how you move forward with your life. And that can be challenging, but it's also extremely rewarding knowing that you are the person that can take those steps. You don't have to rely on somebody else. Because Lord knows we know that not everybody is showing up in the same ways, but we get to do that for ourselves. And I'm really, really excited to have this conversation today with you, Kellyanne.
And I loved all the things you said, Kim. And if you are here with us live, please comment in the chat. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And everything that Kim and I share is coming from a place of having been there. So we share from our experience. We also have training in what we do, but really that training has come because of the things that we have learned along the way, and because of the challenges that we have overcome. And I'm going to be honest here, when I started my journey, I thought I was taking responsibility for my life. If you had said to me, do you take responsibility for your life? I'd say, of course I do. I had, Kim, when you said that you didn't really understand what radical responsibility was, I was totally on the same page. And I actually didn't figure it out until just a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So even though I was on that journey, I still did not look at my life as being my responsibility. Mm-hmm. I looked at all of the people, all of the circumstances around me, and I let those things control how I felt about my life. Mm-hmm. They say that you have to make yourself happy first. Mm-hmm. And that is so true, but that's not what I lived. I really lived from a point of, well, if this person does this, I'll be happy. Mm-hmm. If I get this opportunity, I'll be happy. If my job, if this person, if my boss stopped giving me a hard time, I'd be happy. If I just had this much money in my bank account, I would be happy. And I really let everything on the outside control how I felt about everything on the inside, control my happiness, my peace, my self-worth, all of those things. And it really wasn't until I started, I was in a program and with Bob Proctor, who is one of my mentors, and he said, the results that you are getting in your life today, you are 100% responsible for them. And I was like, well, that's not true. What about this? And what about this? And what about this? I'm not responsible for that. Kim, can you relate to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We take a look at the people that do this. This person did this to me. This person took this away from me when I needed it the most. Right. And yes, those things happen. And I think the biggest thing is we have to recognize that we're not looking here at blaming other people or even blaming ourselves for some of the decisions that we've made that got us here. One of my statements always was, if I didn't worry so much about all of the struggles I had around my body, then I would be happy. Like, I really believe that would open it up. But we know that if it's not this, then it'll be that. Like, there's always going to be circumstances that show up in our life that will challenge us, right? How often do we get into a place we've done all the things that we're supposed to do, right? We've made the to-do list. We've created the environment for us to flourish, for us to be in a really good space. And then something happens and it's like, well, what's the point? Why should I keep bothering trying? The point is you have to. This is the only person that can do this for you is you. And so it's not about blaming other people. We can do that. We can easily blame other people and just take that responsibility off of ourselves. It's how we choose to take the situation, to take the experience, whatever it is that we're going through. And you can think about this, those of you that are tuning in right now, like what's happening right now in your life that makes life really hard, or what's making you angry, or what's holding you into a place of resentment around other people. Those things, we can't change other people, right? We talk about this many times. If they would only understand where I'm coming from. We can't change the way people act, think, respond, behave. The only person that we're responsible for is ourselves. So, that's why this is a journey of ourselves, to be able to forgive ourselves where we need to be able to say, here are my current circumstances. This is what's going on in my life. How can I make this feel a little lighter? How can I make this feel more doable today, instead of feeling, which is what we're going to be talking about today and in probably next week's episode, is living as a victim to this. These are hard conversations, Kellyanne. I'm sure we're stirring people's, because we don't have a clue who's listening right now, right?
You're right. And I have had clients, and I'm sure you have too, as you said earlier, we tend to say, yeah, but you don't know what I've gone through. You don't know what I'm dealing with right now. And I'm sure we both had clients who have said that. And some people have gone through some really difficult things. And and that's not to say that we are responsible for any of that, because we're not. As you said, we're not responsible for what other people do. You may have trauma in your life. Many of us do. We've talked about that on the show before. Many of us have trauma in our lives, and you are not responsible for it. You're not responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for what you do with that. You're responsible for the healing. If you've had trauma, if you've had, strained relationships, all of the things, all of the hard things that come up in life, they are not your responsibility, but it is your responsibility to do something with them. So if you stay in that victim mode, which we're going to talk about more next week, if you stay in that role, you are allowing that thing, that circumstance, that person to hold power over you. when you release that and you look at what how am I when you're in that mode of letting other people hold responsibility over your life, you are not you're not standing in your power. You are giving your power away. You are creating for yourself that victim state. And as long as you are there, you can't move forward. It's only in starting to examine, what am I making this mean? What are my thoughts around this? And we've talked about getting curious, right? Like, you have to get curious about this. What are my thoughts around this? What are my feelings around this? What am I making this mean? And is this keeping me stuck, or is it moving me forward? And when you start to look at it from a place of, how do I move forward with this? That's when you take radical responsibility. And Kim, let's talk a little bit about, because you and I have talked about it, about the difference between reaction and response.
So when I think about reaction, this is a place where we often, I'm going to actually call this out to those of you that are tuning in live with us. This is about teaching moments, right? So when I'm living in reaction, I'm unfiltered. I'm quick to react. I'm quick to shout back at people. I'm quick to potentially run away from an environment. When I say run away, I mean like not show up in it the way I need to be able to, make a situation better. I run from it. So we all react differently. Some of us react with anger. We react with our words. And some of us also react by fleeing. Right? So we talk about our flight response, and I'd love for you all to think about that. When I'm reactive, I can feel, again, I'm going to go back to inner child wounds. I go back to, I'm feeling not enough. I feel myself get smaller. I feel myself feeling not heard, not understood. Whereby if I respond, it means that I'm first. I think for me to respond, I actually always, it starts with us, right? I have to start by recognizing what it is that I'm feeling. Sometimes when we respond, we're not responding from a place of empowerment. We're responding from a place of hurt. Those are those past hurts, right? But our past hurts, those often can be called triggers. When a new experience that we're having upsets us in some way, we can feel reactive because it triggers an old wound that we have. But when we're able to look at a situation and come from a place of responding. So when I think about responding, I think about my feelings. So when I react, I point a finger at somebody else. You did this. You did. There's a lot of youing, right? I point my finger at people. When I respond, I come from a place of I. So first I have to check in. What is it that I'm feeling? How am I feeling? And I might not, I think, this, and again, this is raw and unscripted. So I'm processing this out right now as I'm saying this. If I react, I'm quick, I'm impulsive. When I respond, it might allow me to have a pause, a space between something that has happened to me and then the way I'm going to choose to respond to it. So in that space, that's where I'm checking in with what it is. What is it that I'm feeling about this situation? Why is it that I'm feeling this way? So I get to really pay attention to the emotions that I have. And then I come to the person or the event or the experience, whether I'm going to somebody or I'm looking at it, I respond to it differently, and how I can better move forward with it. How can I make it better? What do I need to say? But I come from that place of I
totally agree. And that's, I spent my whole life reacting. Mm-hmm. That was what I did. I reacted to everything. And that I got to a point in my life where I realized that wasn't working for me. Because, when I talk about kind of standing in your power, I was giving my power to everybody else. What everybody did determined how the rest of my day went. Mm-hmm. If somebody upset me, that would ruin my day. Maybe it would even ruin my week. Mm-hmm. And I have somebody close to me who I have talked a lot about this. I think it's really easy. I've done some work with younger girls and kind of preteens and teenagers, and it's very, and I mean, so many of us do it as women too. It's so easy to give your power away, to allow what somebody else does to determine how you feel, how your day goes, how your week goes. And then you live in this up and down, constant, there isn't any peace in that.
Yeah.
Because you don't know when somebody's going to do something, when when a circumstance is going to happen in your life, and all of a sudden, like, you're waiting. I spent my life waiting for the next shoe to drop. I spent my life waiting for something to happen that was going to trigger me, as you said. And then this was what my days looked like. I was never at peace because I was giving my power away to all of these different things, different people, different circumstances in my life. And when I started to, and it's the hardest thing in the world. It's probably the most courageous thing that I've ever done, is actually starting to go inside and to say, what is my role in this? What is my responsibility in this? How can I find my own power? How can I feel? I made a decision that I wanted my life to be like this. I wanted to have ups, and I knew I'd have downs, but I didn't want to do this anymore. I wanted to do this, kind of the rolling hill. That's what I wanted. And I couldn't get there without taking radical responsibility. So that's why living into this, and it's not easy. It's not easy. Living into this has transformed my life and has brought me more to that place of freedom and contentment, more of a daily contentment. And I have to stop myself because things will happen. Somebody will say something. A circumstance will come up that is not fun, that is not good, that is upsetting. But as you said, Kim, I have to take that pause and say, how do I want to respond to this? Because if I react, I'm giving it my power.
Yeah.
And I want to stand in my own power.
Yeah. And like, think about that piece. And this takes time, everyone. We're still learning this every single day. But it makes me think of, when someone's upsetting you, or someone mistreats you, or someone doesn't value your time. These are just an example that's coming to mind. And you get angry at that person. You feel it. Why don't they respect me? Why are they always late? Whatever. But you've never chosen to share with that person your feelings about this. So that's just one example. You can't assume that someone's going to potentially change or behave differently if you don't talk about your own feelings around it. And again, it's not always about other people. It's about ourselves too. We have to recognize that maybe we have things that we have to work on in our own lives to be able to make life more easier. It's not always about pointing the finger at other people, right? But this is ultimately, like, imagine imagine you're in an environment that you're really angry about, and instead of fighting with that person and losing your power to them and always feeling like you're literally being stepped on by this person, what about if you actually took the time to look at that relationship and say, like, what is it about this relationship that I'm not okay with? What is it that needs to be changed? Acknowledge your feelings in it. Acknowledge where you're feeling hurt, where you're feeling mistreated. These are just examples. And speak to that person. Like, this is what this podcast is all about, is about having real, honest conversations with people. But that means that you also have to be vulnerable with yourself. You have to be willing to say, it hurts me when you treat me like this. And have those real conversations, because I believe that that's what helps another person see you. See, we all have our own history, right? And so you've got one person that's wounded in one way and another person that's wounded in another. And often those people come into relationship together for a reason. But when you're able to like have those honest conversations and create boundaries where they're needed, and we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, next week. But today's conversation was really about ownership over your own life, responding from a place that will make your situation feel more easy, more gentle, more peaceful, and find that joy that we're all deserving of. That because we can't change the world. I wish we had that power, but we don't, right?
And we can't change other people.
No, we can't. No, we can't. So again, this is coming back to ownership. Those of you that are listening live right now, if you have any questions about this topic, as we're diving into it and, scratching the surface on it, please feel free to ask questions in here. And if this is brand new for you and you're like kind of like wowed right now and saying like, I never really realized it was my responsibility, let us know that too. When you type inside the chat right now and you're present with this podcast, whether you're watching it as a replay or not, it helps your learning. It helps you learn at a deeper level when you're writing things down. So we encourage you to do that. Let us know that you're here. Yeah. What are the things would you say, like in terms of radical responsibility, what's one of your go-tos, Kellyanne, for that has been impactful for you on this radical responsibility trip?
I think taking responsibility is all about the choices that you make. So it's really getting curious about the choices. Like as you said, Kim, you might have a relationship that's not working for you, that is making you anxious, upset, angry, whatever it is. Look at the choices that you're making, because in victim mode, when we're not taking responsibility, we would say all the blame is on that person. But what are the choices you're making around that? Maybe you talked about boundaries. Maybe you need to set boundaries. Maybe you need to have that hard conversation. Maybe you need to limit the time that you spend with that person. They're the choices that you make. And I just listened to a podcast that said, your choices are your superpower. And I love that, because we often think we don't have a choice. And I've heard many people say that, well, I don't have a choice. And I said it many times. This is just the way I feel. I don't have a choice. But you do have choices. And I say that with all the love in the world, because I know there's people listening who are saying that, yeah, but I don't have a choice in this. But you do have a choice. It requires a different perspective, and it requires a different way of thinking. And that's what we're talking about here, is just a mindset shift, looking at things in a different way than you've looked at them in the past. And yes, that is challenging, but that's also growth. As soon as you can start to shift and to realize that there might be another way of thinking about this, there might be another way of doing this, there might be another way of doing life. And that's where my life started to change, when I thought I had all the answers. I did. I thought I had all the answers. I thought I had it all figured out, until life really started to fall apart around me. And I'm like, wow, I don't have all the answers. I'm definitely not taking responsibility for my life. And that was the foundation for me, was actually starting to go inside to look at, where am I blaming others for what's happening to me? Where am I not taking responsibility in my life? And when I started to look, it was everywhere. It was in my relationship with my parents, with my children, with my husband, in my job. It was everywhere that I wasn't, that I was blaming other people. And when I started to just examine that, had that awareness, and we know awareness is the first step to everything. When I started, and that's taken me years to figure it out, and I'm still not there. I still struggle with it at many times. But how do you feel, or what are your steps, Kim, when you are thinking about it for yourself, radical responsibility?
Yeah, I'm going to just fully agree with you. I was going to elaborate on the choices too, right? Because sometimes, like when you start to reflect on your life and do this, and maybe do some journaling on it, it can feel like it's actually like I'm trying to think of the word, but when you see all the areas of your life that it is happening where attention is needed, remember, we can start with one thing, right? We can start with one area, one relationship, one experience. Know this, that yes, it's very, very easy for us to do nothing, because that requires no more further effort. And we're comfortable in what we know. Even if it's turbulent and chaotic, it's what we know. So what I want to say is, yes, we all have choices. And some of the choices that you will have to make in your future, in your today, they will be difficult ones. Nobody, this path of being human doesn't come with comfort all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I can think about when I left my job because of the state of my health, it required change in our home. Like, I left a career and I left my identity and I left who I was to step into something that I really wasn't even sure what it was going to look like. And that was scary as hell. So some of the choices we're going to have to make are hard ones. But, I would encourage everyone right now to look at choices that you've had to make in your life where you have taken radical responsibility to make things better for you. And yes, they were difficult choices, but look back on them now, because at the time we can feel like our whole world is falling apart, right? That choice might be that you had to leave a friendship, or you had to close a door on a role that you were playing, whatever. But when you look back at it, sometimes, quite often, they're the best choices that we would have made. And remember, every choice that you make isn't always going to be one that was the best one. We make the best choice that we can in the time that we're in it. Okay. So we do, and I'm thinking about someone right now that I spoke about that has made poor choices. And she's still struggling with that. And that is why we have to have forgiveness, right, in our lives. This is what it's about. So, I mean, I fully agree with you. To me, the first steps in this is awareness, checking in. I think about mindfulness, right? What are the thoughts that I'm having around this? How is this showing up in my body physiologically? How is this showing up in my feelings and my emotions? Pay attention to that, because we tend to run around on autopilot. And that's why there's, people are walking around the world angry and bitter and rude. And this is the energy, unfortunately, of some people's worlds.
Yeah.
So start paying attention.
Exactly. And most people, and I'm saying this again with love, most people do not take responsibility for their life. Most people don't do this because it is uncomfortable. But when you take this radical responsibility, you put yourself in the driver's seat of your life. And that comes with a freedom to take yourself wherever you want to go. Because it's scary to take responsibility, because then whatever happens in your life, it's up to you. It's because of you. If bad things happen, if negative, if you have negative things happen, it's not to say it's your fault, but you have played a role and you have to accept your role in that. And on the other hand, when good things happen, you also have played a role and you get to celebrate yourself in that. So there is a freedom to this. And sometimes you need help with this, because we say this all the time. You're not meant to do this alone. This is work. And that's, Kim and I do this. We help people move forward. We help people get curious, find out where they're stuck, how they can move forward. Whether it's a coach, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a good friend you have, whoever it is, you don't have to do this by yourself. There is support for you. And sometimes in this kind of work, this radical responsibility work, you need some accountability.
Yeah, you need accountability, and you also need another person's perspective, again, because we can look at the situation or the story, I'll call it the story that we're in, and we only can see it through the lens that we see it through. And we often see it through the lens that betters us, right?
Exactly.
So we don't want to take ownership for our role in it, right? So we need another person's perspective to be able to get us to see things from another. Because again, this is all about getting you unstuck, right? Like it's like, here I am. How can I make this be better? Maybe I can't change it, but how can I make it feel better? How can I live with this differently? Again, this is about responding versus being in reaction mode. So yeah, we can do it. We can do it. I love this conversation that we had today. It makes me really reflect as I'm speaking. This is really good stuff. I love it. Thank you, everyone who has tuned in. I'm going to take an opportunity. Kellyanne and I want to just share different things in the podcast that we're up to. If you want to learn more about us in any way, I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you. Kellyanne knows all about this. I literally yesterday launched my brand new website, and I am over the moon happy with it. It's been a huge labor of love. And, I had a basic landing page before, which was fine. It did the job, but I'm further along. I've grown and I have so much more to offer. And I've had this beautiful person that I've worked with, and we've created a gorgeous website. And I would love for anyone who's listening right now to go check it out. KimBasler.com is where you'll find my website. You'll see really what I'm about. You'll hear a little bit more about my journey and why I do the work that I do with women, supporting them with their relationships with food and body image and self-worth and confidence. And you'll see the different offerings that I have, and see what's there for you that might excite you. So please go check it out. And yeah, it's fun stuff. I tell you, it stretched me, Kellyanne.
Yeah, congratulations, Kim. It looks amazing. And that is a big undertaking. And I'm so proud of you for doing that and advancing your business in this way. I just want to share that I today am dropping something pretty exciting. And I live in Chatham, Ontario, and I am bringing a live event to Chatham. I love the energy of live events. And this event is January 14th, and it is called Evolution, because it's never too late to become the woman you want to be. And this is all about opening yourself up to the possibilities, the potential, the dreaming that is available to you at any age, any time in your life. So I am really excited about bringing that. I'm going to have some speakers, and it's going to be such an amazing event. And I will be shortly after that dropping a program that's related to that. So that's what I'm working on right now. And so we're busy. We've got lots of things on the go.
Yeah. It's exciting stuff, right? Both Kellyanne and I literally are evolving ourselves each and every day. And we encourage you to do that too. Like whether you're in business, whether you are a parent, whether you are a teenager listening to this, we never know who's going to be here. But we share with you, we're literally stepping into our courage every day when we go live on this podcast. So we would love for you to share with us what it is that you're up to as well. So thank you so much for tuning in to Raw and Unscripted. We will be live again next week to further this conversation. As always, if you loved what you heard today, if you learned something, please obviously share it with us, but we also would love for you to share it with other people. Whether you do that privately, whether you do that on your feed, it's totally up to you. But we do appreciate the teamwork when it comes to sharing this information out with everyone.
We do. And we hope everybody has an amazing day. See you next week.
See ya.